So how many episodes do we have to do with me wearing a Western pearl snap shirt? Do we have to do before I can get sponsored by someone?
Oh my gosh.
Wrangler, if you're listening, I could do one with a hat from my buddy Steven. He'd appreciate it. That's another no. Welcome to another episode of the Matt and Fiona Show. Thanks again for hanging out with us and spending a few time. That's terrible. We're not using that one. 3, 2. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Matt and Fiona Show. Thanks for sitting down with us, spending some time in the family room, chatting about stuff.
Yes.
Life.
Real life.
Or something like it.
That's
a TV show back in the day. Canadian, so you wouldn't know it. It's okay. Yeah, I'm that guy. All right. Today we are talking about something that, I don't know, it's important, I think. Maybe.
It is important.
It's so stinking important. It's great.
I was going to say, now that I know
where I'm going.
Yeah, it was this is something that he had wanted to talk about, and I wasn't understanding the topic as much until you started explaining where you were coming from. And yeah, I would say it is important.
Yeah, so our shows are fun because we don't necessarily do a ton of stuff. I'm preambling, which she hates.
Don't hate it.
Not a fan. But so we have a bunch of topics that we kind of line up, and then we flush them out.
Yes, we do.
Every time. It's fun.
It's a lot of fun.
I like to do it live to her because
we do discuss these beforehand.
I know. All right. So we are talking about managing expectations.
Yes.
And, I think this is one of those things that applies to most areas of your life.
Yeah. My brain does work, I promise. It's just
tired.
late.
Calm down. So expectations are typically out of whack, if we're going to just get right down to it.
Mm-hmm.
Myself included. We have a tendency to look at, again, where we want to be. And again, there's a bit of a follow-up from last week.
Yes, but this is also, we're not talking about goals, which are good to have. We're not talking about different. Like our vision, mm-hmm. which is good to have.
Yeah. We're talking about expectations. And what that means in multiple areas is you have expectations for your kids, you have expectations for your spouse,
which we should have.
Expectations for your boss, for your job, for your life, for your skills on the golf course, your ability in literally everything we do. We have expectations that are, some of them are baked in, some of them are out of whack, and some of them are just downright wrong. And I think one of the biggest things in your life as you're working through life is figuring out how to manage those expectations.
Which expectations are actually reality?
Exactly. Because, and again, I'm not trying to use this show to rail on social media, even though I do. But that's one of those things that has made life really, really tough.
Yeah.
Because if you were to ask or our generation, if you were to ask our parents about managing expectations, the example they would give you is keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
Right? You see your neighbor drive up in a brand new car and you go, oh, I got to get a new car.
Right.
Which you don't. Maybe you do. But you don't have to get a new car because your neighbor got a new car.
Yes.
You don't have to paint your house blue because your neighbor painted their house blue.
You don't need 4 kids because your sister has 4 kids. You don't need...
My sister doesn't have 4 kids.
Well, I know. That's why
I was
just, and we have 3 kids.
And we have 3 kids.
Just speaking.
We're not. But it is one of those things where expectations continually get out of whack.
Yes.
And anymore, society's norms
Mm-hmm.
have made it to where we expect things that, to be honest, most of the time we don't deserve.
Right.
And we haven't put in the work, put in the time for those expectations to become reality.
Mm-hmm.
So when we named this show Managing Expectations, I'm not trying to pull anybody back. I'm not trying to do...
By no means. We want you to go as far as you can.
100%. But what I see, and again, we've talked about this in this show, we've talked about this one-on-one, we've talked about this with friends and family and people that we're working with and helping and just trying to help guide, because we seem to do that a lot. And I do this in my job all the time.
Right.
And I'll give this quick example of, I had a client years ago in the AV side of the business, and we had designed a system, told him what it was going to do, and he said, well, I want you to do this, 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 and this. And I said, okay, no. He's like, no, we're paying you, you're going to do it. I'm like, no, we're not. Why not? I'm like, because it won't work. And then you're going to be mad at us because the system that we put in and we installed and you paid us for doesn't work. His expectation was that because he wanted it to work,
that it
was going to work. And I kept telling him, it's not going to work. The science, the physics, the way the equipment interacts with one another.
Right.
There's no physical way for that thing that you want it to do to actually work.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not get his expectation to align with reality.
Yeah.
So he was unable to manage his expectations.
Right.
And to flip it into like a personal example, for me, I have all kinds of things that I think I can do. Right? My expectation of what I can get done on any given day, on any given job, is typically a little, shall we say,
you
aggressive.
set the bar high.
I do. I set a very
which is
high bar.
Great.
Yeah. But again, I would do a great job to manage that expectation. Bring it down just a little bit.
Well, so I'm going to just, on a whole other similar vein, our daughter is in ballet class right now. Mm-hmm. And she's finishing up, her last class is 2 weeks from now. And we had a discussion about, why don't we talk to the ballet teacher and find out where is her skill level actually at? Because she loves it, but does she have potential? And what is her potential? Because if our expectation is that she's going to be a prima ballerina, it's not our expectation, but if that was our expectation that she's going to be a prima ballerina, and we talk to the dance teacher and she does not have that capability within her, not that she couldn't improve, but you know what I mean? But if our expectation was that she's going to be a prima ballerina, but she can't figure out first, second, and third position, then the expectation is not reality. Right. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean she shouldn't do dance, doesn't mean she can't work at it, but we would need to manage the expectation. And that could, I think, go for sports for kids.
Oh my gosh.
Across the board.
There are so many parents that I know, and I'm not naming anybody, but you know who you are, who, when their kids are young, they're in every sport, they're doing, or they're focused on, it doesn't matter. Right. But they're doing some sport. And around here, it's Canada, hockey's real big. And I grew up in a pretty strong hockey town. And every parent thought at like 7 that their kids were going to the NHL.
And they pushed them.
And we have a huge, like in London, we have a huge junior hockey team that has a lot of kids that go to the NHL. Yeah. It's a big deal. But we also have thousands of children that skate every Saturday morning in some little league who are never going to, they're not playing high school. Hate to burst your bubble. but they're not playing high school, let alone going to college and doing, like, they're not making the league. And you see,
Hey, if your kid has the potential, that's one thing.
100%.
But that's
100%.
a
And
small...
it's funny. I've had a couple clients over the years that actually have had children, kids that have gone to either play junior hockey or to play. And the best part is I'm talking like I know how hockey works. I don't. But I've had clients whose kids are in the league, or who kids have been drafted to the NHL.
Yes.
And it's funny when you talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
and again, they're super excited, they're super grateful. But what they say is that the coaches knew at like 4 and 5, when these kids were skating, that kid there, he's
got the potential.
She's going to be a skater. She's going to be a this.
Mm-hmm.
They know. If they know, if they're in the know, they know. But then you ask, well, like, what about all the other kids that your son grew up playing with? Did they think the same? Like, the coach didn't, the parents all did.
Right.
So when you look at that, and then you look at the expectation side of it,
mm-hmm.
your parents, and we've put our kids into sports,
or
ballet, or whatever.
We will continue to do it.
But if I looked at my son and, he swings a pretty good golf club.
Right.
He's not Rory McIlroy at this age.
Right.
Compared to where Rory was or where Tiger was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not bad. If he enjoys playing golf, then he can go play golf, and that's great.
Not every kid has to be.
And not every kid will be.
No.
And to take it away from the kid side, the sports side,
right?
Because we could go to that vein forever. I think a lot of it is also career-based, spiritual-based, relationship-based. If my expectation for our marriage is here, but we're here,
and you don't do anything to move it and
to try and help grow that,
mm-hmm.
it's not going to happen.
Right.
And that can get you into a whole world of hurt.
Absolutely.
But when you start looking at even your job,
mm-hmm.
if your expectation is because somebody else got a raise, that you should get a raise.
Right.
Or that you should be
promoted,
you should be promoted, or you should be a manager because, well, I've been there 6 years and that guy's been here 6 years and they're now a manager, or they're now, running a night shift.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I run a shift?
Right.
Your expectation, it's great that you maybe want to do that, but what are you doing to help make that expectation a reality?
Yeah.
You can't sit back and expect everything to be handed to you just 'cause.
Well, and one of the problems is nobody wants to hear that they're not doing everything that they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to be praised. Everybody wants to be told that they're doing great and they're awesome. And they don't want to be critiqued or corrected, which is the very thing. Say that word this is. I said it. Which is the very thing that they need in order to help push them so that they can potentially move closer to an expectation.
Yeah, it is as simple as, and again, it's a mindset thing,
mm-hmm.
right? I don't expect when I walk onto a job for the first time.
Right.
Right. I've got a meeting first of next week.
Right.
And we don't know a ton about what we're looking at with this job.
Right.
But if I walk into that job and it's in like a ministry and they've got some issues and they want to potentially upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
If I walk into that with the expectation that it's going to be a 6-figure project.
Right.
Which it could be, possibly.
Right.
It would be amazing.
I would take it.
But if I walk in with the expectation, based on
nothing,
that it's a 6-figure project.
Right.
Right. And again, we're not talking faith. That's a whole different thing.
Right.
But if I walk in with the expectation, again, based on nothing,
Right.
and with no faith behind it, that it's going to be a 6-figure project.
Mm-hmm.
If I walk in and it's a $25,000 project, that's still a good project. We can still, we can do well with that.
Yes.
And keep some people working.
Mm-hmm.
If I have that expectation that's based on nothing and out of left field,
Yes.
I'm going to walk away disappointed, opposed to if I walk in with the expectation that it's going to be a good job.
And it's going to be, we're going to have a great first meeting.
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to solve problems.
Yeah. And it'll be profitable. And it'll
Yes.
be limited headaches.
Yes.
Which is almost more important than profitability.
Right.
It's not.
It's probably up there,
It's very
though.
close, though. Neck and neck.
Yes.
I can walk out of that meeting happy if it's a 10K project,
Mm-hmm.
a 25K project, a 6-figure project,
Right.
or $500,000.
Right.
It can be great.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about managing those expectations
Yeah.
so that when you walk away, you're not crushed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. We've got in our community, there's somebody who they do workshops on vision boards. And I'm not anti-vision boards. I think they're great. We sort of have one.
Or yeah.
We just don't call it a vision board.
Right.
But I see pictures of people doing these things, right?
Right. Yeah.
And heck, I've got somebody I know, and they live in an apartment, and they've been in an apartment for 20-something years that I've known them, and it's a nice apartment.
Yes. Nothing wrong with apartments.
Not at all. We started in
an apartment too. Yeah.
But they have this thing that they post quite often about like their expectation of their dream home life thing.
Right.
Right. And it's a picture of this ridiculous like $20 million house.
Estate.
Yeah. A state house in the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it and I go, it's great that that's their vision. It's great that that's their faith.
Right.
But as an expectation that they're going to get there, that might be a bit of a stretch.
Right.
And, again, there's a delicate balance between faith and dreams and aspirations and vision and expectation. And I see a lot of times, and I do it myself sometimes.
We all do.
Where I realize very quickly that my expectation of something was not very well quantified.
Mm.
It was, I pulled an expectation of how something was going to go down or what we were going to do or how we were going to accomplish something.
Right.
And I didn't base it on anything.
Right.
It was just something that I literally plucked out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you're walking a tightrope when you live your life that way.
Yeah.
Because if you're susceptible to minor swings in your levelness, as I'm being real generous there, you're going to have ridiculous highs.
Yes. And
unbelievable lows. Because when you had an expectation that was set way too low, right? Then you are over the moon when someone does, or when that situation is acceptable.
Above expectations.
Yeah, acceptable.
Yes.
And then when you walk into something where that expectation that was ridiculous wasn't met at all.
Right.
You're going to be just devastated.
Miserable. Yeah.
And it's I've been racking my brain trying to come up with a really good example of how this works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have finally got one. I like to go pheasant hunting. I go pheasant hunting with my uncle.
Yes.
Right? We go to a farm. We're not going to public land or anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
We go to a farm, and so it's a game farm, and the game farmer, guy, dude.
The
whatever his name is.
owner.
Yeah. Or one of his people. We tell him how many birds we want,
Mm-hmm.
and they put birds in the field. And then we go out with the dog, and we try to find the birds.
And shoot them.
And shoot the birds.
Mm-hmm.
And then have pheasant for dinner.
Yes.
So, if I go out to hunt for pheasants, and my uncle has called ahead and said, hey, this is the day we're coming. Can you put out 8 birds?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in real life, when this happens, if we put out 8 birds, my expectation is that we will get 6.
Oh, okay.
Because hopefully I'm shooting reasonably straight. And hopefully the dog is finding the birds.
Right. Flushing the birds.
So if
Yep.
8 are out,
Mm-hmm.
and there might be some bonus birds left over from other hunts,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we're going to find 6.
Okay.
And that's a really stable, qualified expectation. If I went out, and I've taken my oldest with us a handful of times, and he is the perfect example of has ridiculous expectations. If we go out, and my expectation is that I'm going to bring home 30.
Oh.
I am going to be devastated when we bring home 8.
Which
Would be amazing.
without an expectation of 30 would be amazing.
But there's no reason for my expectation to be to 30 other than I randomly went, you know, it'd be awesome if we got 30
If we got
birds.
30 birds. It would fill a good portion of our freezer.
Oh my gosh, it'd be amazing. There's nothing to quantify that. There's nothing to make that a possible reality.
Yeah.
But my expectation was out in left field. So when you look at it from literally every other aspect of your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's relationships, whether it's, you know, salary or job or whatever.
Your health.
How often do we hear about somebody who is, they want to be in a relationship and they've got a list, and I don't know how many guys do this. I don't know if guys make lists. Some do, but most of us don't really have we don't write it down, which maybe we should. But there's a lot of people who have a list. And quite often you kind of hear that anecdotal story about, oh, some girl and she wants a guy who's this and this and this and this and this, and he's got to be 6 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll meet a really nice guy who's ticking every box, but he's 5'10". And they can't get past the fact that didn't take that box.
Nope.
That's the one we needed. And you look at it and it's like, okay, well, honey, like, you're so close. If your expectations were maybe a little bit better aligned.
Well, I mean, and you want to know what? You have your necessity, must-haves.
Yeah.
Right? Because my must-haves with you, I had a list.
Was extremely good looking, right? Passably good looking.
We're going to move on.
Not unfortunate looking.
No, but I had my must-haves. And my must-haves were literally serving God.
Mm-hmm.
Devoted and dedicated to Jesus and his house. And I definitely had a lot of other items on my list. One of them was I wanted somebody older than myself. Now,
We need sound effects.
okay, but seriously, on my list I had somebody older because I wanted somebody mature. So I thought older meant mature. Not always the case.
Did we tick the mature box?
Believe it or not, yes. But so the funny thing about that is, for those of you that don't know, he's 5.5 years younger than I am. And so that older box.
Put us on blast.
I just put us on blast. I know. It's okay.
How old why are we using blast? Oh, Lord.
Anywho,
I apologize.
that was you. But if my list was wanting somebody older and all of a sudden, now I'm not going to lie, because you had just turned 21 and I was 26 turning 27 when we met, it took me back for a minute. But
that was awesome.
You were awesome. But I wasn't going to get hung up on the fact that you were younger than me, and I wasn't going to ignore everything because that one box, maybe that one and one other
that one expectation
wasn't checked, right? So my self-managing expectations, I knew what I needed. The non-negotiables. And the non-negotiables for me, you fit. Some of those negotiables,
I'm glad I fit them.
Right, I tell you.
Gosh.
Anywho, but no, I had so my expectations were my non-negotiables, and then my would be really nice. And that was an easy way in this situation for me to manage my expectations, not get hung up.
Yeah.
Because at that point, 5.5 years was a huge difference at that point in our lives, or at least it seemed like it could be. But I didn't allow it to rob me from what we have now.
Yes.
Right?
Excellent.
And also, like we had talked about, one of the other things when we're managing our expectations and we've seen this happen so many times, that I'm just going to use, like when people get sick, and we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
And whether it's cancer, whether it's dementia, any of those terms that you don't ever want to use and you never want to fight against, and we don't ever want anybody fighting against, but all of a sudden they have this terrible report, and we are all for standing on the Word of God. We are all for getting your scriptures. But when we've watched these people not be able to fight a common cold, but all of a sudden they are going
their expectation
is
they're
going to fight this off by themselves, whether it's cancer, whether it's dementia, the list
it doesn't matter
it doesn't matter what it is.
Well, it's that same example of, and again, we could get into a whole show on faith, which maybe we should.
Right.
But it's that same example of that person who has the expectation that they're going to use their faith to, again, get that massive estate. But they can't use their faith to, get an extra coffee. Right. They can't seem to get their faith in action.
Get that new dress. Yeah. Get the new car. Right.
Yeah. And again, we're kind of mixing a couple things a little bit here, but like anything, it's just a matter of when you manage your expectations, when you get them, and again, I'm not saying they have to be small. I'm not saying they have to be huge. I'm just saying you need to be aware of what they are.
Use wisdom.
Yeah.
In what
it's the principal thing.
It is the principal thing. Our pastor just preached about it. It was quite awesome.
Yeah.
But no, use wisdom in when you're trying to move forward in something. Move forward at all costs, all the time.
Of course.
Right? And again, we say this, we want to be encouraging, but no but there. We want to be encouraging, realizing that sometimes it's one step at a time.
It's always one step.
Well, it's always one step at a time.
It's always one step at a time, and I would love to see, and again, we see this at home with young Christians, right? Who come in and they're fired up and they're super excited, and their expectation of what they can do and the level that their faith is at and the level that their walk is at, that they can be the superhero in faith. And that they can share, and that they can do all this stuff, and their expectation is that they understand everything.
Okay, I have a big one.
Oh my gosh!
Okay,
this is going to be a 4-hour episode.
No, last one, then we're done.
Really?
No, but all right. and this is for anybody who's new to Christianity or isn't a Christian, all right? If you've been doing this for a while, you've learned this, but
hopefully. Their expectation is off.
No, here's the thing. When you first get saved, so many people say, get saved, know Jesus, and your life is going to be so much easier because of it.
Right.
That's not true.
It can be.
It can, in some realms.
Typically, it's not.
No, but so here's the thing. Jesus never said life would be easy. He did say that, take up his burden, or he would take up his yoke, for it would be light and easy. So, but he did promise to go with it every step of the way.
Yeah.
And he didn't promise life would be easy. The Bible clearly tells us that we will have trials and tribulations, but it also tells us that we will never be tempted beyond what we are able to handle.
Yeah.
Right? But so many people, become a Christian. Life is going to be so easy. Life is not easy any way you put it. While we're here on earth, it's never going to be easy. So you can kind of throw that expectation that you're going to be a Christian and life's going to be easy. It's not. But again, like I just said, God did promise to go with you every step of the way. He promised that he will never tempt you beyond what you are able to. He promises that he's going to be your refuge and your fortress, that you can put your trust in him, that his joy, his peace is ours. And those are the things that we can take away from it. But being a Christian is not easy because life is not easy.
It's not.
And I think that's a huge misunderstanding.
Those are those expectations that no matter how you came into them, right? And again, sometimes you just don't know, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that absolutely.
But it's paramount that as you learn, as you grow, as you get to know yourself better. And again, like, we've been married 16 years. We are still learning things about each other.
I've had to manage my expectations that he's not going to always pick up his socks. And I'm okay with it.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're still okay. Yes.
But you're perfect, so we're good. And I never say anything publicly that goes out on the internet to the contrary.
Because it's true anyway.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Managed expectations.
And on that note, thanks for watching before I dig a hole any deeper. Again, thank you for joining us on this journey of fun and adventure. And
encouragement.
This has really just become our date night. It's an excuse for us to talk to each other. But if you're enjoying the show, or if you're not, I really don't care. Please go to YouTube, go to Facebook, go to Instagram, go to Twitter, go to all the things. Like us, follow us. We're doing our best to share some effective content and stories, and I don't know, just sharing our hearts with you.
Really good at that, aren't you?
Right? It's great. That seemed 100% sincere. But again, please go follow.
Yes.
Connect with us. You can send us email technically. But throw something in the comment, throw something in the chat, or all the other stuff. Go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. In this episode, we reached back to last week's episode a couple of times, because these they gel very well.
Go together.
So go do that. And as I said, if you've got any feedback, feel free to give it to us. We might listen to it, and I might ignore it, or heck, I might even block it. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week on the next episode.
We'll see you then.